figuring things out. But back to the tomatoes. So again, it really, if you want these to be smaller, bite-sized, you can cut the potatoes smaller. You can cut these in half. I wouldn't go much more than half, because when you cook these, they're going to cook down quite a bit. And then when they get that roasted flavor, they're going to be kind of a little bit mushy, but it does add a good flavor to your dish. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about shallots. So people often ask me what's the difference between a shallot and an onion. Well, you can see here, they're obviously a little smaller, a little different shape. But if you can see that, they're also purple, adds a nice little color. The big difference, though, between an onion and a shallot is the level of sweetness. A shallot is going to be a lot sweeter than a regular onion, even a regular onion. So they come typically like this. You can get them a little bigger. Publix has them. I've seen them there when Dixie has them. But you can find these pretty regularly even here in town. So take a bite out of them. You can actually even eat just one of them raw to kind of get the flavor of what you're going to be doing, what's going to go into your dish. These are just adding more and more layers of flavor. Now, the interesting thing you'll notice, I'll come back around, is when you have your shallot, you can see that it usually already comes sliced in two for you. So it's got two halves that it puts together to create the onion. So with this dish, I'm just going to slice down the middle to open this guy up. You don't want to eat that. That's going to be awful if you get any of that in your dish. Take that skin off. And then you're just going to cut those halves into one more half. Because they're sweet, it's not going to be an overwhelming onion taste. So having them in big chunks like this, when they roast up, they get caramelized and super delicious. So you can go ahead and have these big chunks like that. It's just going to add flavor. The last thing we'll talk about is garlic. I'm Italian. There's no such thing as too much garlic. If you're not a fan of garlic, leave it out, no problem. But if you are, I like to add the entire cloves. So this is what a clove looks like without the skin. You can see here, garlic is almost going to pop that in my mouth. You can probably smell my breath even from there. So this yummy, yummy garlic clove, I'm going to put them directly onto the sheet pan and roast them along with my tomatoes so they get that really good flavor. But to get the skin off, it'll be a little tricky. So all you're going to do is take a knife like this, and it should be a thicker knife. You can do it with a paring knife, but it's a lot more difficult. Take your knife, lay it flat on top of the bowl, and then just give it a nice little hit. Sometimes it may take a couple times, depending on the onion itself. When you do that, it kind of breaks it open a little bit, and it really gets those garlic juices going, which is what you want. You want that. And then the skin also becomes a lot easier to take off. You may, hit it that second time if you need to, just to get the rest of that skin off. And then you've got beautiful whole garlic cloves that are going to be delicious in your recipe. Other things I do put on here, there are some other types of vegetables that I would recommend with this dish that pair really well together. One of these is Brussels sprouts. How many of you probably have horrible memories in childhood of these Brussels sprouts? I know I did, but back in the day when we made Brussels sprouts, boil them. You don't want to do that with this vegetable, ever. You really want to sear this either by roasting it in the oven or on top of the saute pan. It'll change your life. A little olive oil and a little salt, just a little bit of salt to caramelize these things up. They're absolutely delicious. If you're having a cheat day, you can even add a little bit of bacon. Always tastes good as well. So this is what they come out looking like. You can buy them in the store. And you can buy these again in the veggie section. They come in either bags that they got from the local farm at Publix. I've seen those bags. Or there's also larger companies like the ones that have the broccoli or the stir-fry mix, those kind of bags in the produce department, but also have these Brussels sprouts. So what you want to do with these Brussels sprouts is you have this really hard fin here where they were picked. We want to get rid of that. So to do that, just like I did there, I'm just going to take it and kind of look at where you see the first kind of leaves really start, and just cut that on off. I'll show you what this looks like. Just like this. You don't want to eat this. This is going to be very gross. So we want to get rid of that. Brussels sprouts go really, really well with these guys. This is a butternut squash. It can be an effort to get it broken down. You can also already buy the butternut squash cubes already done for you in the produce department as well. A lot of times what I do, if I don't need a lot of it, I might just cut right here before I get to the bulb and just use that. In order to peel it, you need one of these, a good vegetable peeler. If it's really hard, you can put it in the microwave for a couple minutes, and that's going to loosen up that skin for you. But a good vegetable peeler, I usually just peel it down on every side and then cut it up just like I would a potato. So the butternut squash is going to have that kind of mix between a white potato and a sweet potato. If that makes any sense. But very good, especially in the winter months. I like to make this dish, not only with the butternut squash, but also acorn squash. Acorn squash you don't even have to peel, so those are very good as well. If you are using the butternut squash, you're going to get in this bowl of each one of them right here. This is what this looks like. You can still use this. You still want to use this meat. You don't want to keep the skin on at all. But you can just use a spoon to really empty out all these seeds in here and use the rest of that as well. Sometimes people like to even break these in half, remove the seeds from the bottom, and then you can actually put vegetables in them or protein in them, kind of make it like a stuffed butternut squash. That'd be kind of a fun thing you could do with that. Another thing that really goes good with this is asparagus. Everybody knows asparagus. Oftentimes people, where do I cut this? The asparagus will tell you. If you just bend, it breaks off to tell you the rest of this is no good. So that's just another little tip. And all asparagus do that. You really just kind of let it do its thing, and it's going to break off where it wants you to. So basically, kind of starts to go a little mushier, and it's going to break off there. You got that. Let's see, what else do we have? The protein itself, I'm going to bring that out here as soon as we start to assemble this. This doesn't have to be just chicken. It can be any kind of protein that you really like. I don't do it as much with steak because we are roasting it for 30 to 40 minutes. But you could use certainly pork chops, pork tenderloin with this. Chicken, as far as chicken goes, I'm not a big fan of doing the chicken breast with this because chicken breast does get dry very quickly. So the chicken thighs are much more forgiving. So I would recommend that if you're doing chicken, that you use the bone-in and keeping it more healthy, the skinless chicken breast on your dish. So that's the protein. We're going to also, you'll see, we're going to put some lemon in with this, just to, again, to add those flavors. And then we have our salt and pepper. If you haven't gotten one of these dispensers, they're great. I cook a lot. I don't always want to sit here and do this. I put a lot of pepper and things into my meals, so I want to make sure I have that easily accessible. And one of the last things I'll also talk about is olive oil. Now, Italians, as you know, love our olive oil. There's all kinds of different olive oils out there. When I went to Italy, even just a few years ago, a year and a half ago, I guess it's been, I don't want to go back. I want to go anywhere. But one of the big things they talk about is the olive oil and how it's created. So you do want a extra virgin olive oil. What that means is how many times has it been pressed. So extra virgin means not a lot, if at all. Another thing you want to look for in a olive oil is you don't want the plastic bottles, the ones where the light gets in. That will actually impact the long-term flavor of your olive oil. See, this is my favorite. I get this on Amazon, but they do have it at Publix and Dixie. This is just a brand. It just has such a good flavor to it. I think the whole can is like maybe $21, $22. You get a lot of bang for your buck out of it. I don't know how many ounces this is, but it's quite a few. And you really want to use a good olive oil. I mean, in general, I think it's a cookie, but especially if you're going to use it to make like a vinaigrette or bread dipping, because you're going to taste that olive oil quite a bit. There was a little test that we did when we were in Italy, so you kind of get the flavor, the natural flavor of the olive oil, is you just take just a little tiny bit in the spoon, and then kind of breathe it in like that in your mouth. And if it's not good olive oil, you're going to know it right away. If it is, it tastes delicious. So this is the olive oil that I like to use, and that's what I'll be using today. All right, so let's see. We use the different kinds of things. Let's see. I'll just like to keep up on that. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing, another good protein to do this with. If anyone's ever done spatchcock chicken, you don't have to do this, but you can if you are feeling adventurous. Basically, you would take the whole chicken, open it up, and you remove all the bones, but it's still kind of butterfly. That's also a great way to do this recipe. If you don't want to do that, your butcher can do it for you, just like the fishmonger can cut out and fillet your fish. A butcher is happy to do a spatchcock chicken for you as well. So just different ideas. You can break up a whole chicken if you want to use that with this kind of dish. The thighs will be a little higher in temperature. The chicken breast should be around 160 to 165 to reduce it getting too dry. Chicken thighs can go up to about 175. So that's kind of
And Dr. Ticknor, can you hear me?
I can.
We do have a question. So someone would like to know the name of the olive oil. They couldn't read it on the screen, so I'll type it in the chat too.
Can you see it? I'll spell it for you. Filippo Berio.
Berio. Gotcha.
Yeah, so this to me is just the best thing that I can get here. I mean, of course, there's better olive oils, and if you're willing to pay import charges for some of the best olive oils in the world, you most certainly can do that. But as far as your standard everyday use, you can't beat this one. Great question. Sorry I didn't clarify that name. Any
No problem.
other questions? What are you doing? I'll take that as well. All right, so now we're going to start to put this together. And here you have to think about what it is you're cooking. If you have something that cooks very quickly, you want to actually add that in later in the cooking process. When you first start, anything you want to be caramelized, you want to add that in. So our potatoes, obviously, they take a little bit longer to cook, so we're going to add those in earlier on. Mushrooms are going to break down super quick. These tomatoes are going to break down super quick. These shallots are not, so we can go ahead and add those in as well. Now, I go back and forth on this. You can layer them if you don't want your vegetables touching, and then you can kind of pick and choose what vegetables you like. Or you can mix it all together, and that is perfectly fine too. It's just a preference. And for me, what I found is what I really decide is how do I want these flavors to mesh together? I really want these shallots to flavor these potatoes, so I'm going to go ahead and add those in. And I'm also going to go ahead and add in these garlic cloves as well. And just kind of mix them around. Now I'm going to hold off on adding the green beans. I probably will add those more like 10 minutes in. So I'm going to keep this here where I know where I want it. And then I'm going to save room for my mushrooms, tomatoes, and green beans about halfway through the process. And then I'll go get my protein. You're going to add your protein. Now, the good thing about using chicken is that you're going to end up with all these juices all over this incomplete dish. So I like to line my pans with a little bit of aluminum foil. It doesn't impact the flavor at all. It's a little easier on cleanup. These pans can be kind of a pain in the butt to clean properly. Strangely enough, you use a dryer sheet. That helps with it. But for this dish, because it doesn't roast for so long, I'm going to line my pan with this aluminum foil before I start adding these vegetables on. And then once I have this, I'm really if I'm doing mix all over, I'm going to actually put the chicken on top. If I'm doing it half at a time, I'm just going to dump my chicken on the other side. So if you touch the chicken, you don't wash your hands. I didn't touch it, so we're good to go there. And so at this point, again, this is the point I'm going to stick it into the oven. You want to have your oven preheated to 425. If you are using skin on, you actually want to go to 475. So definitely higher heat with that. All right, we definitely still want to season this before we stick it into the oven. So first thing we're going to do is we'll add just a little bit of olive oil. Now I marinated this in kind of a vinaigrette. So basically I just took some olive oil, some red wine vinegar, some different spices added into that, and a little bit of Dijon mustard. And I kind of let this set in there for about the last 3 hours as I was cooking this morning. Without the skin, you don't have to pat it down. I know the directions say to go ahead and pat it down so it's not wet anymore. You only need to pat it if you're using skin on. Why? If you have any moisture in that skin, when you roast it, it's not going to get crispy. It's going to get soggy. So even at Thanksgiving, if you're doing a turkey, any kind of poultry, you want it to be very, very, very dry. And that's what's going to give you that nice crisp. Because this is with Campus Wellness, we are being healthy today. We are using the skinless chicken thighs. Now there is more fat and more calories in there, but what you save in that is that you can't go wrong with these chicken thighs. I mean, even if you go over the time where they're optimal, they're still going to be moist and delicious. So if you haven't been using dark meat, especially these chicken thighs, really think about that because the difference in the flavor is pretty impressive. So I'm going to go ahead and simple here, just add my pepper. I love peppers. And capsaicin, which is the main ingredient in all pepper, is very healthy as well, so feel free to load as much of that as you want. And then I'm going to add some salt too, a little more sparingly on the salt. I'm trying to be a little healthier here. So just a little pinch to kind of give it that underlying flavor. All right, last thing I'm going to add is my lemon. In general, you always want to have some kind of citrus when you're cooking, especially when you're roasting anything. It really just kind of ties everything together. You can put your hand over it if you're worried about seeds, so you can just do it like this. Another technique that I found that I like is that I will use these guys, and I will use this as a way to really get all that great lemon juice out of this, and a lot less effort on my end. So that's another little fun pro tip. So you want to do half the lemon now, and generally half the lemon when it comes out, so you just reiterate that great citrus flavor. All right, and as we go, always a good thing. And then as we start to put this away, again, we're setting these to the side. We're going to add those about halfway through. As you put this in the oven, if you have little things, crumbs or whatever else, I just wanted to share with you this little gadget. This is something new to my house this year. It's a little hand vacuum. This one's called Copper Chef. It's super cute. You can see it really looks like a vacuum there. It has a little hole. You would use this on any countertop just to get those crumbs up. So there are no more crumbs going on the floor. All you got to do, just like that, nice and easy. I think I got this one on Amazon for like $15, so they're very reasonable. So I actually have a couple of these around the house for different things, so just thought I'd share that with you. Okay, so we're going to put this in the oven, but I do have one ready for us already. So let's take a look at what we've got. All right, so this is a little different than what I've got here. Again, I wanted to kind of show you a couple different ways that you can cook this dish. Oh, goodness, you should smell this. It smells delicious. So I'm going to bring this up to the camera, and then I'm going to show you how I would break this down into fish. Oh, man. If you could smell this right now, you would be, this is going to be my lunch, for sure. So what I used here was asparagus. I'll talk to you about that. That is butternut squash. And then the Brussels sprouts. If you look, they've turned a little dark. That's what you want. That's the caramelization. That's what makes this so good. I also have some red onion in here. I didn't use the shallots in this one. So as you see, it's just very versatile. Anything you really want to put in here, you can. But look at the colors on this. You see how beautiful this is. This is a very nice presentation. This is going to look a little differently. It's going to look more like a country home. This is definitely warm me up in the wintertime with good food. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to transfer the chicken onto its own plate. Now you can thermometer check this as well. It should be about 175. I've done this so long I can actually feel it. It cooked perfectly. You should go a nice little bounce back. Shouldn't be too hard. That's how you know that it's chicken diet hard enough. And then the reason why I moved those over there is that if you look here in this pan, you can see it. There's a lot of juices down there from that chicken. You really want to reuse that juice. Make sure you're not losing it. So I put the chicken on the other plate, and then I'm just going to mix these around. Get that yumminess all in there. Oh, it smells heavenly. And once you do that, you're ready to serve. So I'm just going to take some of my vegetables. This is very filling. You don't need a lot of it. And then I'm going to take one of my chicken breasts and place that on the side. I like this. I might even do a small arugula salad on the side, something like that. But look at this dish. So easy. 10 minutes prep, 40 minutes in the oven. Look how colorful this is, how healthy it is. And again, if you could smell it, you would know this is absolutely a stunning dish. So easy to do. Total prep time, including cooking, right around an hour, about 10 minutes to cut everything up, get your vegetables prepared, and then 30 to 40 minutes in the oven. I would go back to this other one we're making here, and I would add all of this after 20 minutes, just to make sure it does get roasted the way you want it to as well. And even these green beans are going to cook down a bit, so this is going to be a delicious dish. What do you guys think? Who's hungry?
Someone said it looks delicious.
Yes, yes, indeed, and it's going to taste. It tastes wonderful.
Yum. You have a few comments rolling in. I wish I was there because I feel like I can smell it through the computer.
They're so good. The butternut squash is nice and soft, but still in texture. Yeah, everything in this, in the Brussels sprouts, I'm telling you, if you want them, you got to get them almost black because they are so good when they're caramelized. All right, do you have any questions? Any other thoughts? Just to make sure I hit every little thing I wanted to tell you.
We have a few questions rolling in. Someone said, wrap me a plate, please. And then somebody said, what's a good wine choice?
Pick up at the Ticknors. Wine with this, I would definitely go red wine with something like this. Montepulciano. I could send that out. It's Montepulciano. That is a region in Italy that, in my opinion, serves one of the best wines in the world. I would totally drink a red wine with this. So Montepulciano, Brunello, Bobbie d'Aoste, any one of those would be really good. Because this is a very hearty dish, I would not go into the whites. Now, with this other dish, because of the green beans and the potatoes, there I might do a nice buttery Chardonnay of some sort. If you're not into Chardonnay, maybe an Albarino, which is a Spanish wine, kind of tasting a little of that butter out of it, but leaves that big solid flavor. So lots of wine choices with that. Yeah, I don't know if you got a little bit of music going in the background, because that's what I do when I cook. And this wasn't a school thing. I probably have a glass of wine here, sipping on that as well, because that's one of my favorite things, just to relax, have a glass of wine while you're cooking. Have fun with it. You know, life is too short, especially as we know now. You know, have fun with cooking, get into it, make it an event for yourself, make it a way you can de-stress and just, you know, enjoy cutting, chopping, and, you know, and the reward at the end, you get to eat it, and you get to share it with someone you love. So that's, to me, that's my favorite part of cooking, is just making it an entire experience. So this is a meal I would make, you know, in the wintertime, especially when, you know, long days, go on campus, whatever the case may be. I will certainly have everything prepped to do this and just be ready to stick it in the oven when I get home. You most certainly can pack this in a freezer bag on your pan and literally put it in the refrigerator and let it marinate, all of it marinate, and then stick it in when you get home. That would work as well. Very versatile here, very versatile.
And what was the oven cooking temperature?
425 for skinless chicken, or 75 for skin on chicken.
Okay. And since we have a smaller group today, I'm actually gonna see if I can make it to where participants can unmute themselves if you all would like to ask questions.
I'm going to turn this music down just a little bit. All right, who's got some questions for me?
Have you ever used sweet potatoes with this recipe?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's going to have a similar taste to the butternut squash. I use a lot of butternut squash because I belong to the Misfits Club. I don't know if any of you guys know about that. But basically, once a week, I get a vegetable box delivered, kind of like what the Mix is doing, but this is a national company. And I always get a butternut squash. I always get that and I always get celery. So I like to use the butternut squash because that's what I have available more often than not. But sweet potato would be great for this as well. And it's going to look a lot like this. I mean, one of the big things I like about this is the colors. You know, they always say you eat with your eyes first. And so a sweet potato is going to give you that. Any kind, you know, all your greens mixed together. You can see whenever, if I added this red in, if I put tomatoes in this dish, how colorful it is. You know, and it feels like, you know, a treat. It feels like you're going to be eating. It's so healthy, so completely healthy. Yeah, good question. Sweet potatoes are good. Fennel, I've used fennel with these recipes. I put in celery, carrots. You really can get real creative with whatever you have in your pantry.
And we have another question. Does the olive oil in the can have a longer shelf life than in the glass bottle?
It's going to have a longer, good shelf life. So olive oil is typically going to last quite a while, whether or not it's in the glass or the see-through plastic. But because it's not letting any of this light in, it actually is going to have a very nice shelf life where it stays tasty and it doesn't lose any of its flavor. So you can even see on the bottom of this, it even gives you an expiration date for on the can. Because, you know, when you're talking about getting this kind of olive oil, they really are concerned with quality. So they're going to tell you, like, when this expires. And again, olive oil is going to last anywhere between a year to 3 years, depending on which one you get. So, I mean, it has a pretty long shelf life, but having it in this reduces that light coming through and diluting out some of that flavor. Other questions?
Dr. Ticknor, if I wanted to add spinach, would I add it probably after everything came out of the oven?
Sage, I would probably add, are you doing fresh sage or ground sage?
Fresh.
Fresh sage, I'd probably put that in when I put this in. So it does get that little bit of a roasted flavor too. Most other ones you can put in right when you're seasoning. So like fresh thyme, I would throw that on right when I'm seasoning. Rosemary, you can do that as well. But the sage leaves, they will kind of wilt a little bit. So I would probably add that when I add these ingredients halfway through the process.
Great, thank you.
Sure. You know, that's the thing with these spices too. I mean, there's really no limit. I mean, whatever you enjoy in your cooking, or whatever spice you like, I do tend to stick to a lot more of the traditional Italians, the oregano, basil, you know, garlic, those kind of things. But you could easily take this dish with a butternut squash. I could see adding some Indian spice to it, some, you know, cumin or some cumin curry. Add that in just to give it that kind of underlying Indian flavor. You name it, whatever spice profile you enjoy, it will be so versatile with this particular dish too. That's why I really like to make this. And when I was asked to do this, you know, we wanted something that was easy enough for everyone to do, but something that could look really good. But then also something students can do when they go home, because, you know, us parents, we do kind of like when you treat us to dinner, and this is a great way to do that. That isn't going to be a major hassle for you. In fact, I mean, a lot of this stuff you can actually just buy already cut up for you, already diced for you, and really then all you have to do is just dump it on the pan. So this is something that looks impressive. It was just dumping vegetables in a pan, putting some chicken on top, adding a little spice, some salt, pepper, throwing it in the oven. That's all it took. My young chefs out there, this is the way to go.
That is me, a young chef.
You go like this, Carissa?
I do. Now I'm interested. That's another one I can add to my list to make. I'm pretty sure we all wish we could be there.
But this is super easy.
Hey,
Yes.
Bobby, how long did you say to cook before you added the tomatoes, the mushrooms, and the green beans?
Sure, I would do this 20 minutes. So most of the time, this is going to take, in a standard oven, if you're 425, it's going to take 40 minutes, almost to the dot every time. So 20 minutes in, I would add all three of these, and then, combine to get that flavor with the vegetables. And when it comes out, I'm doing the same thing. Typically, I'm just going to mix it all together, but you don't have to. You could just serve potatoes separately. I know, we have some picky eaters. I'm sure, either here or your kids are picky eaters, they don't like things touching each other. You can separate this out on your pan, so you're not still having to cook, using multiple dishes, but you can, control what touches what. My daughter was that way. She hated when her food touched. So a lot of times when I was cooking, I would do that kind of thing. I would just put things in certain areas. You want to cook it all together though, because you want that chicken juice to get in there. That's so much flavor. And again, making sure you're using those chickens with the bone in it, because that's where the flavor comes from as well. Other questions? Any criminal questions out there?
We do have another question. So, what is the best way to determine if the chicken is fully cooked?
A thermometer. That's absolutely the best way, especially if you're fairly new to cooking chicken. Again, I do this kind of like, the steak where you can use the, what it feels like. You do your arm, finger like that, as it gets looser, you get medium rare. I know exactly what a chicken should feel like at 160, which is the bottom you want to keep for a chicken breast, and even 175 for a thigh. It can take a little bit more cooking, and it's because it's going to keep that flavor. But I use that. I've been doing this for a while, so I can use that, but I would always recommend, especially starting out, poultry you want to be safe with, to use that thermometer. You don't need a super expensive thermometer. I think the one I use, it's not even electronic. I have an electronic one I use for like the turkey and so I can keep it in the oven, but the other one I have, I think I got for like $5 or $6, just enough to do a quick check on things if I'm not sure. But yeah, definitely starting out, make sure that chicken breast gets to 160 and your thighs get, 165, 170, 175. Anyone else?
I definitely want to purchase that little vacuum cleaner. My mom would love that.
My aunt actually gave all of the cousins one of these for Christmas. And I was like, that's a unique little thing I never thought about. And you just kind of open it up and you dust it out and it goes on batteries that last. I mean, I think I've replaced the batteries twice since I've had it. It's about 3 months, and it just takes one AA battery, so super easy. I'm always looking for tricks like that. What are things that are going to be easy? I mean, what are the things you really want to invest money in? I'll spend a little more on something like this, because if you get one of those cheap vegetable fillers, it's going to break on you. So this is, I think the brand's like Titanium or something. Titan Titanium vegetable peeler. I think I paid maybe $15 for this, but I'll have this the rest of my life. It's just product. It's not going to break. This is hard to peel, especially if you're doing it without microwaving it. So you want something that's sturdy like that. Yeah, different gadgets. If you use some spices a lot, I like these little things. They're made of bamboo. I'm going to show you. Basically, you can put whatever spices you like in there, and when you're cooking, you're like me, I do all the cooking in my house. My husband does not cook, he cooks horribly. And so I'm the only one putting my hands in there, and I'm, definitely always washing my hands, even more so now. But, if I'm the only one putting in the spices, then it's certainly fine if I have, figured this out myself. There's also like little salt spoons you can get. I think I have one here. These things are adorable. If you don't want to touch the spices yourself, this is called just a salt and pepper spoon. This is adorable. I mean, you just want to be like, oh, I just want to eat like ice cream or something with it. But, so this is actually what you would use if you wanted to keep this handy with this, and then you could just be able to portion out. This is probably about half a teaspoon. So real fun little. Yeah,
And we had another question pop in, Dr. Ticknor. When would zucchini go in?
I would put zucchini in when I put the mushrooms and tomatoes in. Yeah, there's really at that point, I mean, if you want a really crisp zucchini, I might wait 10 more minutes. I don't mind, in this dish, I don't mind if my vegetables get a little soggier. I'm fine with that flavor profile. But if you really want that crispiness out of that, especially like yellow squash or zucchini, about 10 minutes before you pull it out. And that'll keep that very crisp for you. And then also I would probably just cut it in whole pieces so those half pieces don't cook as quickly. That's a good question. Zucchini and squash would be great in this. I've done that plenty of times. Peppers, red pepper, green pepper, if you like those kinds of things. It's just pretty much anything you want to throw in here. That I started experimenting with this. I mean, sometimes I'll even add kale into this. So again, anything to be super, super healthy, adding those flavors to it, and you'll figure it out. I mean, some vegetables don't work well together. You'll figure that out pretty quickly, but most of them, it's really hard to go wrong. You're mixing this together.
And I have a quick question. I'm cooking green beans today. What would you recommend seasoning them with? I'm just gonna pan sear some.
Every time I throw garlic.
Okay, garlic.
A little bit of garlic, a little bit of salt and pepper. We want to add so many seasonings to vegetables, and they really stand really well on their own. I add a little other spices because I'm trying to bring the whole dish together. But if I'm eating vegetables by themselves, I'm going to look to really basic spices. So your garlic, your salt, your pepper. I actually like also a lot of red pepper flake. I love spicy food. So even just putting a side of broccoli, I'll drizzle with a little olive oil and red pepper flake on it while I'm cooking it, and that's delicious as well. Are you doing regular green beans, or are you getting these fancy French beans?
I have those fancy French beans, so I need to cut the ends off. When you said that.
People don't know that, and it really is preference. Some people don't care about having that on there. I've just always found it a little odd in my mouth, and it's a little more bitter in that tip. So I like to cut them off. Not everyone does that. Some restaurants don't do that. So, some of that's a personal preference.
Give or take. Yeah.
Just like wine. I mean, can you not drink a Pinot Grigio with this? Of course you can. If it tastes good to you, drink it. So really all this comes down to what are the flavors you like? What are the flavors you see that you cook most often with? And then sometimes, going crazy, going out of off the box and, doing something different. Like, how many of you guys have even tried acorn squash? So they look literally like this. I'm actually having one in my box, but it doesn't come so much. You really just slice it, and a lot of people have never had anything like that. And so you can imagine serving this at like a dinner party or something and really kind of lifting this up a little bit. You could even add cheese to this. It's not the healthy version, but if I wanted to, I could add maybe some gorgonzola and some walnuts to this, and that's really going to elevate it as well. A nice little petite filet that I do on top, saute on the range. I don't typically like a lot of my steaks on the grill. I'd rather sear them with butter and but any of that could really elevate this dish as well. You want it to be more of a Mediterranean style, add feta, and then maybe artichokes, some dried tomatoes. I would always add the cheese last. If you're going to use cheese, add it in at the end. You don't want it to melt. You want people to see the chunks of it. The nuts I would add probably at the end as well.
Awesome.
Sesame on this, maybe even some pine nuts. Any of that would go really well. Pecans, I mean, it's like a sweet potato. This would go great with pecans.
Do we have any other questions?
Well, this is the last one of these I'm going to do this summer. As we know, we're all heading back here soon. Just wanted to say thank you to everything everyone is doing. I know last week was a really rough week for DSU, and I think we're all just feeling that. We are a team in this, and we're going to get through this together one way or the other. Just my little PSA. Wear the mask, not hard. I got this little mask you can actually put on, and you can still see the person and their smile. So you want to use this. This is something I got for some of my students that they need to have accessibility things. A lot of people read books. We don't realize how many people do that. So this is a nice mask to have. Or you can just have fun and have your little kid now. So please be safe out there. If you have any questions about food or any questions about this dish or any others, I'm always happy to chat about food. To me, again, this is just the way you show people you care about them, and give them a good meal. A nice, healthy meal says a lot to a person, especially right now when we're all struggling in different ways, and just getting that extra love sometimes just makes a real difference. But thank you all.
Dr. Ticknor, we got one more question coming. Which Misfit Club do you use?
It's actually misfits.com. Misfits is what it's called. Misfits Market maybe, but it's at misfits.com. If you want, you can email me and I can send you the code to it. It gets you like I think the first box gets you like 20 or 30% off. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, I had never considered doing a vegetable delivery club before. When all this came out, of course, I'm sure, as you know, when we all were on lockdown and afraid of everything, I really started kind of ordering as much as I could in, so I would only have to make very quick runs to the store. And the idea behind the Misfits Market is that they're all organic. They're all farm, from the farm here in the United States, so a farm in the United States. They're all organic, but the Misfits part of it comes that maybe the grocery stores decline them because they weren't perfect. They've all been pretty close to perfect to me. And then usually if I'm cutting it up anyway, I don't care. Like my guess, this one probably got in there because it's a small butternut squash. So you're not going to want to buy something like this at the store.